Pavel Zacha is off to a hot start and wants to remain a member of the Boston Bruins, which is great because trading him would be sending the wrong message to David Pastrnak.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Tuesday, November 4th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rumors and his reaction to them, wanting to stay as a member of this team for the foreseeable future. He is, of course, a pending unrestricted free agent next summer, being 2027. So hopefully they can get things done here, because trading him would be sending the wrong message to your franchise superstar. Additionally, we'll do the Atlantic Division power rankings and also preview tonight's game against the New York Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Before we get into it today, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts and dad jokes at E. McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years now. One of the big stories so far this season has been the interest in Pavel Zacha. There's been several reports that teams like the Vancouver Canucks, even the Montreal Canadiens, have been calling Don Sweeney, wondering what it would take to pry away the center versatile forward who sometimes plays left wing. Scott McLaughlin of WEEI took the opportunity on Monday to bring it up to Zach's and see what he thought about all of these rumors. And it kind of goes back to last season, right? The Bruins were struggling. Hampus Lindholm was out. Charlie McAvoy was out. They were still somewhat in the playoff mix around the trade deadline, but they ultimately decided to sell off, and out went Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, who else? Obviously Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, Brad Marchand, Max Jones. Zacha admitted if the team is performing well, you don't expect that many guys to be traded. But when you don't have a great season, you kind of look at, okay, what are the guys who could be traded? You're always looking at it a bit more because the chances are higher of being sellers compared to buyers before the playoffs, which, yeah, we all saw that play out in real time last season. Now, Zacha has had his name surface in rumors off and on going back to last season, and particularly the last couple of weeks when Elliot Friedman, Pierre LeBrun, both brought his name up in relation to the Vancouver Canucks. They are a team that is trying to pry him out of Boston. According to LeBrun, though, and he's an insider for The Athletic, the Bruins don't intend to move Zacha and instead view him as an important part of the core as they continue to transition and retool their roster. And I mentioned this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. You look at a guy like Pavel Zacha, who seemingly advancing in his career and who will be a free agent in 2027. So he's got this season and next season on a very reasonable contract that carries a cap hit of like $4.75 million. You would think that you would be able to fetch a pretty good haul for him, seeing as you'd be getting 2 playoff runs and a guy who, yeah, he's a bit older, but still right in the prime of his career at 28 years old. So it's tempting to try to float him on the trade market because you would be able to get significant haul back. We're talking potential first round picks, high end prospects. But when you look at it, you remember that Pavel Zacha was drafted in 2015. He was a high pick in that draft class that has produced so many important pieces. The Bruins were maligned for their picks at that draft, of course, passing on Matt Barzal, Kyle Connor, among others, to take Jake DeBrusk, Jakub Zboril, and Zach Senyshyn. But that draft class, so deep. Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, Dylan Strome, Mikko Rantanen, Barzal, Connor. Like, the list goes on and on. Brock Besser. Zacha was the 6th pick in that draft. And the fact that the Bruins were able to get him in exchange for Eric Haula, still a major win for Don Sweeney. Now, while he isn't among, the elite when it comes to this draft class in terms of scoring, he's developed into a very reliable two-way forward who does have some scoring pop, and he's off to a hot start this season. And the reality is he's younger than David Pastrnak, who was drafted the year before him. 2014, 21st, was it, overall pick? Or maybe it was even, 25th overall pick. So David Pastrnak is older than Pavel Zacha. And if you're looking at retooling, rebuilding, and you're trading a guy who's younger than your franchise player, what message does that send to him? Not to mention a close friend and a fellow countryman. They could be playing together at the Olympics this year for Czechia. They likely will be. What message does that send to Pastrnak? Why would he not be thinking, maybe this is not the spot for me if they're trading away guys who are younger than me for a retool? Now, of course, the skill level between the two is different, and you'll get much more out of David Pastrnak even well into his 30s than you could from Pavel Zacha. But the point remains, if you're trading a guy who's younger, it doesn't send a very good message. Now, Zacha has been ignoring the noise. He's not on social media. He's not getting it sent to him by anybody else. Trade rumors, part of hockey. It happened when he was in New Jersey. It happened even last year, where it was thought he could be part of that sell-off. For his part, he says he's so excited to be part of the Bruins organization, and rumors are always going to be there. Just have to keep playing and doing his thing. And his thing has been on point so far this season. Tied for the team lead in assists, second in points, and he's playing in all situations as a top penalty killer, first unit power play guy for a team that struggled in those areas last year, but is now in the top half of the NHL. He started the season playing left wing on the second line with Casey Mittelstadt and Victor Arvidsson. Things were not clicking. Casey Mittelstadt was healthy scratched. And when he came back in, he was put on the left wing with Pavel Zacha taking the role of center. In 7 games since, they've been very good. 66 minutes together at 5-on-5. The Bruins have outscored opponents 4-2 with 54.7 shot attempt differential. And they're matching up against opponents' top lines as well. That line scored both of the Bruins' goals in Saturday's win over the Hurricanes. Zacha said that trio is starting to understand each other. You need some time with new players. Zacha played with neither of these guys, before last season. Mittelstadt came in. Now Arvidsson came in. Takes some time for these guys to get to know each other, and they're starting to show they can play against top lines, starting to score a bit more, and more comfortable playing every game and every practice together. So Zacha's performance, his versatility, his contract, they do make him a valuable player to teams looking to add, but also to the Bruins. If it were up to Zacha, he'd be staying put. He can sign a contract extension beginning July 1st, 2026. The Bruins reportedly have an appetite to keep him around as a core player moving forward. It kind of depends on how the team performs. If they're well out of it at the trade deadline, then perhaps he is a candidate to be moved. If they're blown away by a trade package that is offered to them. But if he keeps playing like if that second line keeps clicking, chances are they can stay in the playoff mix, and he will be a key player moving forward beyond 2026-27. And that's great for the Bruins and for David Pastrnak, who's in his prime years. You don't want to waste them. Getting younger across the board would be doing that. Speaking of the playoff race, let's update the Atlantic Division power rankings and preview tonight's game against the New York Islanders here as the podcast continues. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they are worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It helps you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. And their visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. I mentioned yesterday on the podcast, everydayers will remember that the Bruins, despite the fact they have won 3 games in a row and have brought their record back to an even 500, they're still in last place in the Eastern Conference. That was heading into yesterday's action at the very least, and that remains the same. They have more points than the Philadelphia Flyers, the Buffalo Sabres, the Florida Panthers, the Washington Capitals, and the New York Islanders, but they've played 2 more games than all of those teams and therefore have a worse point percentage. Let's focus in just on the Atlantic Division right now, and I have no choice but to put the Bruins in 8th this week. 7-7 record, 3 wins in a row, but unfortunately, they have a 500 point percentage and the worst goal differential, or tied for the worst goal differential, with the Senators and the Panthers at -3. So they've made some ground up after that losing streak to begin the season, or after they won the first 3 games of the season. Then they lost, 6 in a row, 5 in a row. They've now come back with wins in 4 of their past 5. Still back only, though, at 500 in terms of point percentage. Bottom in the Atlantic Division. Slightly ahead of them is the Ottawa Senators. 6-5-2, 14 points, same as the Bruins, but they've only played 13 games, so they have a 538 point percentage. Identical -3 goal differential, but they've allowed 3 more goals. They've scored 3 more goals. 51 goals allowed for the Ottawa Senators. Their goaltending tandem of Linus Ullmark and Levi Merilainen struggling more than or worse than the Bruins are putting up goaltending wise, save percentage wise. Jeremy Swayman had a fantastic game against the Hurricanes. I'd love to see him back in the net tonight against the Islanders to keep that going and to gain a bit more confidence moving forward. So right now, Bruins, Senators, Ullmark, Swayman struggling apart, and The Senators, of course, without Brady Tkachuk, that's a huge absence for them as they look to repeat as an Eastern Conference playoff team. We got two teams tied at 542 in terms of point percentage, that being the Florida Panthers and the Buffalo Sabres. The Panthers, maybe you can give them an edge because they have more regulation wins than the Sabres. Sabres have a better goal differential, though, and they're 5-2-3 over their past 10 compared to the Panthers, who are 4-5-1. But extremely surprising to see, the Panthers in fifth and with a negative goal differential. Now, in fairness, of course, they are without Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov. You put those two guys back in the lineup, I'm sure you have a better record, a better goal differential, etc. But that's the situation for them right now, and they are just above 500, 13 points in 12 games. It's the bottom four right now. Toronto Maple Leafs had been struggling a bit. They're coming off a huge comeback win last night over the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're now 7-5-1, 15 points in 13 games, back to 0 when it comes to goal differential, and a .577 point percentage. The Tampa Bay Lightning really struggled out of the gate, but they're now 6-2-2 in their past 10 with 5 straight victories. And that has boosted their point total to 14, which is level with the Bruins. But of course, Tampa has played only 12 games. The Bruins have played 14. And Tampa now has a .583 point percentage and a +2 goal differential to sit in third. Couple of surprising teams remain at the top of the Atlantic. Maybe not Montreal is as surprising because of their success last season, but the Detroit Red Wings, they're now 9-4 with a +3 goal differential and a .692 point percentage. And they've been playing a lot without Patrick Kane, who's been injured for an extended period of time now, much to my chagrin because he's on my keeper fantasy team. I don't know how the Red Wings do it, but they've got another 7th round pick who, as a rookie, is putting up impressive performances in Emmett Finney, playing on the top line. Just unbelievable how they can find these guys, pluck them out of nowhere, and they become impact players. I'm not saying he's Pavel Zacha, but pretty remarkable what they've been able to do so far. And without Patrick Kane in the lineup, when he comes back, should give them more of a boost because he was averaging like a point per game before he went out. Then we have the Montreal Canadiens. I hate to say it, but this team is so fun to watch. They're pulling off overtime victories. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, honestly, two of my favorite noms. So fun to watch. Juraj Slafkovsky, Ivan Demidov, Lane Hudson, Jacob Dobbs in net. This team's 8-2 over their past 10, .750 point percentage so far this season, which is tied for first overall with the Winnipeg Jets. Absolutely incredible what this team has been doing. The Avalanche have 19 points, Colorado, but Winnipeg, Montreal tied for the best point percentage so far in the NHL. I should mention the Bruins at 500. They're level with the Vancouver Canucks and the Chicago Blackhawks. If you're looking at kind of the tankathon, the Calgary Flames, by far the worst team in the NHL so far this season, only 8 points in 14 games, .286 point percentage. That's followed only by Jim Montgomery's St. Louis Blues, who are at .385. Then you have the San Jose Sharks, very disappointing Minnesota Wild team at .423. And then the Nashville Predators. So right now, the Bruins are like 8th from the bottom. So the tank isn't really on at the moment. They're at 500. You got a bunch of teams who are worse than you. You got guys who are buying in. Things are looking a bit better for this team. And perhaps we're looking more at a rebound or redemption year over a repeat of last year. Again, roller coaster start, very up and down, but we can forgive that because of new faces, both on the ice and behind the bench. They seem to be starting to figure it out, and they'll try to keep things going tonight against the New York Islanders, a game we'll preview here as the podcast continues. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, $5 bet. If it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app, whether it be NBA, NHL, or the NFL. Hockey season is also officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. Let's be real though, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. Your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that you get no hidden fees at checkout, and you can see exactly what the view will be when you arrive at the venue with their in-app seat view feature. Zone deals are a game changer. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, the Bruins are in action this evening against the New York Islanders. And let's tee that one up here for you by looking at the tail of the tape. The Islanders are a team seemingly in the mix for a playoff contention, as are our Boston Bruins. The Islanders are 6-5-1 so far this season, and they are coming off a game in which they beat the Columbus Blue Jackets as well as the Washington Capitals. So 2-game win streak for them coming into this one. The Bruins, of course, a 3-game win streak, and the Bruins have already beaten the Islanders this season. A 5-2 decision back on October 28th, just last week. The Bruins beating the Islanders with Jonas Korpisalo in net. Goals from Elias Lindholm, who is now week to week with a lower body injury. David Pastrnak also scored, as did Mikey Eyssimont, Morgan Geekie, Fraser Minton. They were down 2-0 in that one and came back to win 5-2. So they'll be without Elias Lindholm for a little while. Still no recalls or anything. They do have Marat Husnudinov, Johnny Beecher in the mix to play center or wing on the fourth line. And they'll keep that going, looks like, for the time being. The second line, arguably the better line in the last game against the Carolina Hurricanes. Here's how these two teams match up. On the power play, Islanders not great, 24th, 16.3%. Their penalty kill is 18th, 77.5%. So the Bruins have the advantage, both of those areas, 13th ranked power play and penalty kill. The Bruins remain a very good face-off team. They're 4th in the NHL in the face-off dots. The Islanders are 10th. Goals for per game, the Bruins still allowing more than they're scoring, 3.43, which is 26th. Islanders, though, allowing 3.42, which is 25th. The Bruins scoring 3.21, which is 16th. And the Islanders are scoring 3.33 goals per game, which is good for 12th in the NHL. Goaltending wise, I'd go back to Jeremy Swayman coming off that great game against the Hurricanes. He's now 4-4 with an .896 save percentage. The other end of the ice, Ilya Sorokin, 3-4-1 with an .877 save percentage, usually one of the league's elite goaltenders, but he has struggled to start this season. The Islanders, over their past 5 games, led by Bo Horvat with 4 points. Rookie defensive phenom Matthew Schaefer leading the way for them with 3 goals over the past 5 games. Horvat with 2 assists. For the Bruins, Pastrnak with 5 points. Geekie leading the way with 4 goals. McAvoy with 4 assists over the past 5 games. The Islanders are led in scoring by Bo Horvat, who's got 13 points in 12 games. And then you have Matthew Schaefer, who's got 10 points in 12 games. More than Matt Barzal, Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee, Simon Holmstrom, Jonathan Drouin. These guys have some weapons up front, not to mention Emil Heineman, Anthony Duclair, Shabanov, who's been in and out of the lineup, same as Siplikov, a couple Russian guys who are highly talented, but not really finding favor with head coach Patrick Roy. Don't forget on the blue line, Tony DeAngelo, always an offensive threat. And so it should be a pretty good game tonight between these two teams, both looking to keep hanging around in the Eastern Conference mix. The Bruins have David Pastrnak leading the way with 17 points, Pavel Zacha with 12, Morgan Geekie with 11. On the blue line, you have Charlie McAvoy with 14 games played, 10 assists. So 4 guys over double digits for the Boston Bruins at this point in the season, which is pretty remarkable. The Islanders only have 2. So it's a winnable game for the Bruins, even on the road. Could be a bit of a swing game here in the Eastern Conference. The Bruins could potentially, they're already ahead of the Islanders. They could put 3 points behind them, although the Islanders would still have 2 games in hand. The Bruins have the, I guess, disadvantage of already having played 14 games, which is tied for most in the NHL. A team like the Hurricanes has only played 11. A bunch of teams have only played 12. It shows you how busy the Bruins schedule has been so far this season. And that's a good thing, but also a bad thing, because when you're trying to figure it out, a lot of games on the schedule, not as much time to practice, to figure things out as a group. Hopefully they were able to have a good practice yesterday. They've got no back-to-backs here until the end of the month, so that should give them a good chance to find their groove. And it's an important stretch coming up for them with games against the Islanders, 2 against the Senators, 2 against the Maple Leafs here to begin the month of November. And then they play the Montreal Canadiens on the 15th. All right, that is today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much, my friends, for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Everydayers, I appreciate you. They know that the best way to keep up on the podcast is to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Please do check out the Locked On NHL podcast next. You can get all the latest every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.